Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Time now for everyone except Michelle's favorite game, no fence riding. The concept is simple. I've got a couple of statements for our esteemed panel, and it's up to them to decide which side of the fence they're on. No waffling, or they get called out and maybe featured on the next Open. All right, statement number one here. New owners and GMs have an obligation to know and honor the legacy and history of established franchises. I wonder why I'm bringing this up. Nick, start us off here. What do you think?
How could anyone say no to this? I can't even think of the reason that, like, maybe a brand new franchise that hasn't happened, or like maybe the Seattle Supersonics get a team again. And like, do you have to know the history of the Sonics before that? But even still, like, yes, absolutely. You need to know the culture of your team, or else something like this happens where you just physically do not understand how much Dirk means to this franchise, and then how much Luka means because of how much Dirk means, right? Like, we're starting to break this down a little bit, that Luka was the bridge from Dirk to the new era of the Mavericks. And since that was taken away, fans were not going to just like forgive that right away. And now we're seeing with Dirk distancing himself from the franchise, it's even worse for Mavs fans.
Tim, did you know about the culture of the Mavericks before this recent presser happened?
Well, also, I want to fill you in on a little Sonics history. Boy, it was not popular when they traded 34-year-old Lenny Wilkens. That was one of the guys that Rick Welts compared this trade to. Lenny Wilkens from Seattle, Stephon Marbury from the Suns, and zero-time All-Star Monte Ellis, fresh off 4 lottery trips with the Golden State Warriors. Just like 5-time first-team All-NBA selection Luka Doncic, 5 months removed, or a few months removed, however many months, I don't know. Not many months removed from an NBA Finals appearance. So, yeah, I would say that at least a working knowledge of the recent history, of the tradition. And if you're not going to kind of honor it, you at least have to have a great explanation for not doing so.
And you brought up my next point.
It's got to be more than 3 words. It's got to be more than 3 words.
Well, and you brought up my next point, because I think the responsibility isn't just the knowledge. It's to honor the past greats. It's to make sure that they set the culture, and that all the new people who come into the building know, listen, this guy did it this way. Dirty was in that gym night after night after night, digging it out, making sure that he could be the best that he could be. That's the Maverick standard. That's what we expect. And you can use that as a fulcrum to greatness. Instead, they've used it for a diving board into a vat of inequity. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Listen, I'm just sick and tired of hearing the Pittsburgh Steelers pound their chest on defense and then inevitably have a middling defense. And granted, they've been great lately, but that's what they build themselves on. That's part of the culture of these cities. It's why these cities have teams that represent themselves, and that's part of ownership and trying to connect generation to generation and pass it down. All right, let's keep it going here. Second statement. All the regular season needs to be is a path to earning a ticket in the playoffs. There's been a recent string of belief in sports Twitter that it's not fair that the 8th seed in the play-in tournament can get ousted by losing 2 games in the play-in, or in baseball where a 100-win team gets undone in a 5-game series, or whatever. Point is this: you lose 2 games with your season on the line, you don't deserve to be in anyway. Tim, lead us off here.
What do you want? Like a guaranteed championship?
Yeah.
I was in Oklahoma City today. They won a Northwest Division championship banner. If you want to do that, fine. But that's what you get from the regular season. You get a seed, and if you want to put a little ribbon up in the rafters for a division champion or whatever, cool. But that's what the regular season is. The playoffs, that's when trophies are earned. That's when legacies are made.
Well, and I love the expansion. I think the expansion is great. It brings more teams, more fan bases in. Yeah, is there some unfairness to it? I don't care. Don't end up as, the 7th or 8th seed. It's pretty simple. You had a season to determine that you wouldn't be down there. And if you were better, you wouldn't have to worry about it. But you didn't pull it off, so now you do. So go win a couple games.
And Nick, how do you feel about being the 8th seed and getting ousted?
Well, you could be the Miami Heat, be the 10th seed, and end up making the playoffs for the first time. And that happens, right? You got to win. The play-in, the thing about the play-in is it makes the last couple of months of the season relevant for more franchises. So if there was no play-in, as soon as the trade happens for the Mavericks and all the injuries happen, they shut everybody down because there's just no chance for them to make any kind of playoff run at all at that point. I think they were like 6 games back or something from the 8th seed or something like that. There'd be no relevance. And then you have the fight for 6. All those other teams in the West that were fighting for 6 and could have been tied by the end of the season. I mean, there's some interest there, and like that's all that it is. It's just trying to make that stuff more interesting. And then you get a Clippers-Warriors game at the end of the season that is awesome, and you get a couple play-in games that are awesome, and that's fine. That's all it needs to be.
That's it. I totally agree. All right, listen. our resident hoop heads, you guys knocked it out the park tonight. We appreciate you both, Tim McMahon, Nick Angstead. Great stuff. We're going to take one final break, and I've got a final take for you coming up after this.